issues that we were facing. And the need to articulate our direction is connected to responding to these critical requirements, critical junctures in our development. You're all familiar, I've shared with you on previous occasions, the issues that we were facing on the land front. Hopefully we are in a better position. I think we are in a much better position now to begin to chart a road forward to address the challenges pertaining to the remaining part of the land and developing our campus. But anyway, we were under pressure to move quickly to articulate our strategic vision, a sort of a strategic vision, not a full-fledged strategic plan that requires 2 or 3 years. Remember, on multiple occasions, I did say that developing a full-fledged strategic plan takes a long time. We cannot afford to wait a long time. We really had, and we also had a repertoire of ideas that were in circulation within our campus. And I talked about it in the last campus conversation. I talked about it in my meetings with the Senate. I talked about it in multiple occasions. We're facing challenges. Higher education in general is facing challenges, and here, us in Egypt, we're facing challenges. Devaluation is a big challenge. We've had 3 waves of devaluation over the last year. If we focus exclusively, we have to focus on these issues. We have to spend a lot of time trying to solve problems related to devaluation and other challenges. I mean, the land issue is a challenge in its own right. We have to work on these things and come up with solutions. But if this is the only thing we do, then we will drown in problem solving. We need to keep our eyes on the ball. We need to remind ourselves why we do the work we do, why we spend the time that we spend. It's because there are great things that this university is doing and even greater things that this university can do. And this is what drives everything that we work on. We've articulated 4 pillars, 4 values, if you will, 4 driving principles that are behind the specific initiatives that we think of. Specific initiatives have to relate to capacity. Specific initiatives have to also be realistic and achievable. But before we think of these 2 things, we really need to think of why we're doing that. I mean, what are the key principles, pillars? What are key pillars of our identity that make us put the effort into these initiatives? And these pillars are 4. And we've sort of refined them over and again, I'm happy to keep this as work in progress. But there are 4 pillars. The first is a student-centered culture, a culture that focuses on qualitatively different training for our students, set of services that we provide to our students, both in terms of the academic programs that we offer them, but also in terms of the environment which ensures that they have better chances at succeeding at this university. This obviously is something that distinguished over the years AUC from other institutions at the regional level. But we can never take things like this for granted. This type of work, we need to remind ourselves of our mission, of our commitment, and keep on coming back to this sort of, revisiting the types of services that we provide to our students to ensure that we are living up to the commitments that we think we value at the university. And again, there are specific ways. I'll give examples in a minute.
Because with the last strategic plan, I think there were consultations and meetings and task forces, etc. But many people in the end felt left out and alienated by what came out, by the language of the strategic plan and by the lack of input in the process. So if you can tell us very briefly, how did you arrive at this? What's the process for articulating?
Higher education is transforming very, very rapidly. Academic institutions are normally very conservative. They're slow to change. We cannot afford to do this. We and all other higher education institutions in the world. There are universities at the risk of closing down. There are different modes of delivery of higher education and pre-university education which are in consideration, and they would radically, in some cases, there are suggestions of radical transformation. This is a conversation which we have to be part of, and if we're not, we run the risk of becoming obsolete. our university, like many other universities, runs the risk of becoming obsolete if we don't jump on the bandwagon and start thinking systematically and proactively, if we don't remain ahead of the curve, which is why one of the initiatives, we haven't really done much on that front, but we will, I promise you we will. We're going to push this initiative, is the future, the programs of the future. We need to rethink our programs, not just in terms of their content, because content is changing, but also in terms of the forms and the modalities of delivery. We need to think systematically. This is a challenge for us. If we don't deliver on it, we run the risk of becoming obsolete, and we cannot. So we have challenges because of the financial environment in which we operate. We have challenges because of the rethinking of higher education, the value and the format of higher education, the value of education. There are challenges which are universal, and we need to be at the forefront. AUC has always been at the forefront in dealing with these issues. One of the signature contributions of AUC to higher education in Egypt and the region is that it was at the forefront of introducing innovation in higher education, and we need to remain. Now there is more pressure to do that than ever before.
I think.
And fortunately, I briefly said, without getting into too many details, that now, after almost a year and a half of discussions and negotiations and so on, we have a road forward. I hope it succeeds. I don't want to jinx it, but we have a road forward on the land front. One of the good things about this is that hopefully the current road forward, we have to deliver within a period of 3.5 years or so a certain number of projects, but we don't have to deliver all the projects that we've articulated. So this will give us a little more time. If anything, right now, in some cases, we need more time, not less time. We will work. Look, we have to work immediately. There is no beginning date for working on service or working on excellence. We have to work on these things immediately. The programs of the future, who's going to rethink programs? I'm not going to rethink them. I don't have the expertise. I will try my best to facilitate this conversation. This is something that has to be done by the faculty of the university. We have to think about these issues. But I can tell you, and I will repeat this, I will not tire from repeating this. If we don't do this work, we run the risk of becoming obsolete. And in this competitive environment in which we are operating, the risks that people perceive will become realities. We have to be at the forefront. We have to think proactively. We have to be ahead of the curve. Think proactively about the way we shape the education that we provide. It's not enough to say that we've been the best. We have to remain the best. And there is work that needs to be done to remain the best, to remain relevant, up to date with developments in higher education, plus provide the quality education that we provide. Is there a timeline? Yes, there are different timelines for different things, absolutely. From my perspective, from where I stand, the challenge for me is to have a slightly longer timeline rather, but there are demands that cannot. I mean, if we're dealing with devaluation, we cannot postpone handling the evaluation.
So what are we going to do with the devaluation? Are we going to do anything before the end of the year?
This event was supposed to be the first campus conversation, as I announced last time, and we postponed it because devaluation is a big issue, is a big challenge. And I shared last time our approach, but two things. We realized that our intervention so far is ad hoc and transitional. We are intervening to try to mitigate, reduce the impact of devaluation, and we cannot eliminate the impact of devaluation. It's a bigger issue than AUC. But what we can do is to think systematically, to do our best to think systematically about ways to intervene and to mitigate the effect of devaluation in the transitional period. And as I said last time, there is a transitional period and there is the long term. The long term is a bigger challenge. There is even the intermediate, there is next year, the budget for next year. We may need to make decisions, and probably we would still be in a transitional phase for next year. So we need to make decisions. Currently, we're doing analysis. Amir is here, he could shake his head, and we are doing analysis of a wide range of scenarios. Again, the immediate challenges that we need to deal with is the impact of devaluation on our students and the actual tuitions that they need to pay, is the impact on our staff, especially staff who are on the lower scale of the levels of the pay scale, who are paid completely in Egyptian pounds, and the impact of the budget of the university. And we need to balance these things. We really need. And for that, we're doing analysis of multiple scenarios that hopefully will inform the decision that we make. But we remain committed that no student would have to leave the university because they can't afford the education. Not they don't want to pay, they cannot pay. We are committed to that, and we will remain committed to that. And we're thinking, there is nothing off the table. We're thinking of all of the scenarios. We're simulating, we're doing the modeling for what each scenario will translate. And hopefully we'll be able to, there will be some initial results in a matter of weeks, and then of course we need to drill down and we need to take that discussion. The ultimate decision will have, we presented a budget to the board, and the board would have to approve it. We're not waiting till the end, by the way. We're discussing these issues already now. It's an ongoing discussion. So there is a lot of work that it's one of the areas where we need to do a lot of work, and we are doing that work. I came when Lisa Anderson was the president of AUC. I was provost at AUB. It was right before the events. So we came, and I agreed with Lisa that we should work on building a joint PhD program between AUB and AUC, because there is no PhD program in Middle Eastern Studies in the region. Things happened. I was no longer provost. Things happened in Egypt. This wasn't a priority and whatever. Now we have a Carnegie grant to help us develop a Middle East, over a 2-year grant to help us structure and develop a Middle Eastern Studies PhD program. We have to develop it. Not because it's a comfortable thing to do, because if you don't do it, no one else will. There is no Middle Eastern Studies PhD program in the Middle East. Our voice is not part of this global academic conversation on the Middle East. The best universities in the US are represented. We're consumers, we're not producers. We have to implant ourselves in this conversation. And we have a road forward. At the end of the day, I'm not going to deliver it. I have to work with the community of Middle Eastern Studies scholars, which is half of our faculty, by the way. Because the economists work on the Middle East, everyone works on the Middle East, as opposed to other universities elsewhere. We have an embarrassment of riches. We can do it, we should do it, we'll work on doing it. I'll do what I can to facilitate this process, hopefully we will. But this is only one example, it's not the only thing.
Plans for the future of AUC. we are meeting with donors in the region and internationally and introducing the projects to them, and we're trying to find a match between the donors' interests and AUC's priorities. So we're talking to a wide variety of individuals, foundations, and companies to promote these projects because we realize that they are going to require philanthropic investment. We're also promoting them amongst our alumni because our alumni can help us with introductions to potential donors. The profession of fundraising, or advancement as we call it, is not well established in Egypt. So we are looking for people with relevant skills, operational skills, computer skills, strong interpersonal skills, and we will provide the training. So for a fundraiser, for example, we want somebody who enjoys working with people, who perhaps enjoys to travel, who is outward going, who's good at relationship building. And then if they were to be successful in applying for the job, we would provide training to them. And it is a much sought after profession, so it's a very exciting profession for somebody to consider.